Nichole, first things first, thanks for jumping on this morning.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, love it, love it. So Nichole's going to tell us a bit about her background, tell us about her history in business. But first things first, before we jump into that, Nichole, tell me, describe yourself in one word.
So I feel like I've been trying to find the perfect word, and my biggest fear is to be like basic. Like that's the last. I've already drank pumpkin spice lattes, so that was basic as I want to get. And so when I was looking up words that I was like, what would like really resonate with me? I really felt like the word resilient, but that felt too basic. So I started like going further, and I came across the word buoyant. Now, hear me out. That doesn't mean that I think I'm really good at floating in the ocean. I can do that, but when I think of buoyant, by definition means to stay afloat or to rise above. And when I thought about that, I was like, oh, hey, like that kind of resonates, right? And I think as a person, when things get hard, I find myself wanting to rise above, right? And so I have this massive mentality of when things are hard, to be able to move on, to rise above. And I thought about like being buoyant in a bathtub and how like that's really hard. If you guys try to float in a bathtub, it's like almost easier to drown in a bathtub than the ocean, if I'm being honest. But then I thought like kind of similar to a bathtub to the ocean, like the harder things get, the more matter that's poured in, the more buoyant you have the ability, or the more buoyant you can become, right? And so for me, I was like, okay, I think buoyant and the ability to rise above and the ability to stay afloat regardless of the matter or situation, that would be a word I think best describes me.
I love it. Love it. And tell you guys a bit about her background. She runs a business in New York City. She works with her client is Verizon and Verizon Fios, right? So there's a lot of people on our side of things that work with AT&T. She's from Dallas. I didn't know that you're from Dallas. What part of Dallas?
A small town called Garland. If you've ever seen the show King of the Hill, he's like, the show's about Arlen, Texas, because he like made it about my town. So if you've seen that, it's like northeast out of Dallas. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but I lived in Plano, Texas for a period of time.
I heard that. My dad lives in Plano. Well, he's now in Florida, but lived in Plano. So small world.
My brother went to Plano Senior High School. My dad changed his position in his company. So freshman year of high school, we moved to Florida, also Fort Lauderdale. Dallas was my early years. I fell in love in Dallas for the first time in like fourth grade. It was awesome. It was awesome. All right. So tell us about growing up. I know mom was an entrepreneur, some restaurants. So tell us about life and growing up.
Yeah. So I think that my life wasn't any different than I think like maybe like what a normal American would be. Like you said, born and raised in Dallas, grew up with an older brother. So I think I was constantly chasing him around. I grew up having great influences. My dad was VP of a sales company, still at that same company. He's been there for over 35 years. My mom was a chef and an entrepreneur, owned a bunch of restaurants. So for me, it really didn't even start clicking until I got into ownership that I had entrepreneurship in my family. I was working in my mom's restaurant, loosely for the government, if they're listening, working as an 8-year-old in my mom's restaurant, asking people how they want their eggs. I'm like, what's over easy? I don't know what this means. So, but I think my parents instilled in me in a very young age that not that I had to work for money, but I just think that they knew there was so much value and understanding, and there's so much like confidence that could be built, and communication and team building. And, I played sports my whole life. My dad actually told me that I wasn't allowed to play sports unless I, in high school or middle school, if I didn't play a musical instrument. So my brother, he played the trumpet, I played the flute, and, I played sports. I played soccer my whole life. As Ken probably knows, it's massive in Texas. I played volleyball. And then when I was graduating, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to get out of Texas because I was afraid I was going to become a hairdresser or like a teacher or like just something that was going to keep me in my town forever. And that was like petrifying to me. So I moved all the way across, what it felt like the world at the time, but to the East Coast by myself. I went to school at the University of Bridgeport and actually had an academic full ride to leave Texas and go over to Connecticut. And so my parents were like, bye. Like they weren't like, oh no, they were like, get out. So my brother had stayed home. I left. And then I actually met a friend that was there that was like, hey, we're joining the lacrosse team. It's our first season that we're going to go from select to a D2 sport. Do you want to try out? And I was like, I've never played lacrosse in my life. So like, I don't know if that's what you guys would want me to do. I played soccer my whole life. And they were like, just try it out. So I was a walk-on, tried out, made the team, and ended up actually playing D2 women's lacrosse all 4 years. And even when our keeper, our goalie got out, they threw me in the goal. I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea. So I actually played keeper for a full season as well. So that was a ton of fun. I graduated with a criminology degree. I actually thought about going into the FBI. That was something I wanted to do. I have a lot of background with my family, have been judges, they've been cops, they've been police officers. So we've had, the justice system has been big in my family as well. But when I graduated, I was kind of like, I don't know, like what I want to do, where I want to go. They did tell me that I had to speak a foreign language besides English and Spanish. And I knew kind of conversational Spanish growing up in Texas, being very close to Mexico. I was taking Spanish since kindergarten. So I decided to take Korean in college, got through a semester,
Nice.
got a D, and I was like, not for me. So I want to keep playing lacrosse. I can't do that. So I just essentially graduated with a criminology degree and didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of started shopping around. I came across a sales company and I was petrified. I'm extremely introverted. I don't like being social. Brandy has to pull me out of my hotel room often to be like, let's go like meet people. And I'm like, oh, I hate this. Like, but I've learned to grow to be better at creating conversations, obviously. But that's kind of why I fell in love with sales, was learning how to interact in it. I was like, God, this could make me the person I've always wanted to be, like very extroverted and very, able to talk to anybody at any time. So I interviewed in 2014, actually. At a sales company. They did outside door-to-door sales with Verizon in mid-state New York. And it was outside, freezing. It was the dead of winter. I think I showed up to the interview in like a skirt and heels. And like the girl that was with me was like, for God's sake, let me just give you some Uggs to walk in today. So we walked around and I fell in love with it. I mean, I saw the opportunity for what it was and I looked at it and there was just nothing in my mind that told me I couldn't be successful. So I was like, this seems really easy. Like the math is mathing. All I have to do is just work hard and I'll be a manager, like easy, right? So funny part is May rolls around. My promoting owner actually moved from mid-state New York down to the financial district. And at that point, I still lived in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So my commute went from an hour drive to then a 2.5-hour train ride. And I had a car. My parents had helped me get a car so I could drive to work. And so now I wouldn't be using that car. I'd be taking the metro and then the subway. And so, they were like, I remember calling them and being like, hey, like, I'm excited to start today. And they're like, yeah, this is our new location. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, take it or leave it. And I was like, okay, well, I already committed to it. So I used to commute 2.5 hours to work every day to get to Manhattan. And then we would go pitch in Brooklyn, which is another hour and a half in the field. So my commute home would be close to 3 hours. And I did that all the way up until I was promoted into management. And then opened my first office off Wall Street in the financial district, which was awesome, super cool. We were right next to the stock exchange. And obviously, as you could tell, the rent was dumb, stupid, expensive. So we stayed there for a little while, did really well. And then I was moved up out here and, ran an okay office for a few years, just really didn't get any traction. I was kind of like, what's going to click? And then COVID hit and I only had 2 people in my office and I was like, all right, well, everyone sucks now. It's not just me. We all have equal play. We're all just poor and mediocre. Let's do this. And so, once COVID opened back up, the actually first person that had COVID was here in New York, and the epicenter was like New Rochelle. So we were the last campaign, one of the last offices to open. I opened like later in July. So I had 2 people in my office. And then 6 months later, they were assistant managers. And then 3 months after that, they were both outside deals for me. So in a matter of 6 months, my entire life changed to then now, 2 years later, I have 5 deals. So yeah, that's kind of.
So you went from a small group in your company, couple people, to now having 5 different markets you manage and mentor and coach.
Yeah.
Pretty freaking awesome. All in the last 2 or 3 years. For
sure. It's been a ride.
Love it. Love it. So tell me, in life in general, who's the most influential for you? Who's made a big impact on you?
I would probably have to say, it's so cliche, but I can't say my dogs. I'll say my mom. My mom and me have a very good relationship. So my parents got divorced when I was 13. My dad moved out to like Allen, and I stayed in Garland with my mom, and my brother had already, he's a little bit older than me, so he'd already moved out. And so I got to spend a great relationship, kind of spending my late teens, early 20s being raised by a single mom. And so I just had so much respect for someone who had been in a marriage for 17 years, who had two great kids and kind of just had to start her life over. And I, started learning about entrepreneurship, and like, I respect how much support she gave me, even though I moved across, the United States. I didn't see my family. They all still lived in Texas. I'm sure I was like very vague about what the field was and how I was doing it. And she just kind of allowed me to go to Brooklyn and sell Verizon every day. So I admire the type of woman she is. And I admire that how much love and support that she gave me, and how like still to this day, she's probably one of the only people that has never questioned my ability. She's always been someone that's like, you deserve greatness. You should go for that. And that's like something super rare, I think, to find, especially in our business. Like, we have very helicopter parents, people who are very protective of their kids. And I'm so thankful that my mom was protective, but she also understood that I kind of have this very aggressive mentality, that she was like, let me not get in the way. You do what you got to do, girl. So I'm very close to her. She knows me very well. And so I think she knows, you know what, it's probably, I'm not going to get in the way of this. So whatever you put your mind to, you go do it. And so that was even more pressure, because I was like, God, I can't let my mom down when she supports me. You know what I mean? I can't make her and I both look dumb. So I just think that, in the back of my mind, her being super supportive was that extra pressure I needed to pull through to be successful.
Nice. Love it. So, leaders, people in general, today's day and age, I notice sometimes that people carry a lot with them into what they do for work and what they do in their relationships. Some things they carry are not so good. They don't serve them. Some things they carry are really good. They have great energy and really positive. What would you say to someone that just is carrying something, some weight on their shoulders and their mind that they really shouldn't be? What would you say to them?
I guess there's a lesson that I wish I'd learned a lot sooner. And I think it was nothing lasts forever. And it sounds poetic and something you'd see in like Romeo and Juliet. But I really think I had to kind of grasp the concept that like, when things aren't going well, it's like, it just gives me the sense of hope. I'm like, things cannot be this bad for this long. Like, I promise. Law of averages states if they suck enough long enough, things will turn around. Right. But it's also like kind of kept me very humble, because in areas in which that like I feel like I'm doing really well, I had to also let myself know, hey, Nichole, if you don't continue this pattern, or if you don't keep working hard or doing the right things, like things will change. And sometimes even when I work hard, they do change anyways, but that's just kind of the ebb and flow of life. And I had to get okay with like understanding that truly at the end of the day, I only grow and get better when things aren't going well. I think I remember hearing Vera talk about this once and it resonated with me, but there's never been a time in my life when everything went well and I learned something or got better from it. Right. And so I just started to teach myself that like, I can't wish for life to be easier. I just have to wish that I would get better. And every time I'd focus on getting better, life would essentially get easier. And then I'd level up and it'd get harder all over again. And so anytime I focus on, working on being the best version of me, things do typically tend to get better, but just nothing we ever do is permanent in this life. And so I have to just be willing to put in the work and be hopeful that things will change, but also be humble that things will also probably change, if that makes sense.
Love it. Yeah, there's a lot of value in struggle.
Totally.
Right. There's a ton of value. And listen, although I don't wish it on anybody, I know one of my quotes that I say often is through our deepest wounds come our greatest opportunities.
Yeah.
And I know that from life experience, from my own experience. Right. So it's never fun going through things, but I couldn't agree with you more. Pain causes change causes, opportunities that'll go your way. So tell me about this. So tip for people in sales. All right. We got a lot of people that are going to watch the channel. We're obviously in a sales industry.
Yeah.
What's your tip for anyone that's learning sales and they want to get it down?
So I think that I was never like born for sales. I think sometimes now I've gotten good enough. People are like, wow, like you must have your dad must have practiced pitch with you at 5. I was, you know what I mean? Like he's like closing the door and having me knock on it. But I think that when
I can imagine my kids, right? Going up.
Exactly. It's like, you'll eat when you get this knockdown, right? It's like, but for my mentality, I think like, what really clicked for me in sales is when I started going to work with the intent to genuinely help people and not sell them something is when it kind of switched for me. And I would go, like, I remember going to the field and being like, all right, I can't wait to go and make money today. I can't wait to high roll today. And obviously that serves me. I want to make a ton of money. Obviously, I want to be able to go to the field and high roll and have that recognition. But it kind of just flipped when I started going to the field and realizing, like, how many people can I try to genuinely help today? And when I started realizing people would say this is a people helping people business, I was like, oh, cool. That means someone's going to help me get to management. But when it started really like deepening with me, it was like, no, like from the core of what we do here, our whole business is built on how can I help you better your life? And if I can't, like at a sales perspective, if I can't, then awesome, I'll move on and find someone else that I can. So when I started seeing people as an opportunity to genuinely help them, I like didn't care. I don't care if I got paid to do it, which I think that's kind of like, I'm sure there's a profound quote that's like, when you can go to work and not care if you get paid, whatever it is, right? But I think I would generally wake up and be like, I can't wait to help people today. I can't wait to provide. And when I would talk to customers and hear stories in the field that like, how literally changing a cable bill would resonate and be like a trip, it would be an effect for someone else where they're like, now I can go do this and do this. And so I don't know, I just started seeing people as like opportunities to help instead of people to sell. It just kind of switched for me, and I had this natural indifference, and I was just way more positive, and my like communication skills were just like, I just want to help you versus like, why won't you buy this product from me? And my interactions just became so genuine, and it just became so much easier. And it's not because like I got better at sales. I just got better at understanding people, and I got better at wanting to help people, and I got better at being kind to people and like genuinely caring about their situation and what they need, and not just trying to force a product onto somebody. So when that kind of switched for me, it made an astronomical difference for just me as a person, but also the people that I trained and the organization that I was building. There was so much integrity behind that I think it just made sales feel good. And that was my biggest fear going into sales. I didn't want to like sell used cars or feel like I had to like force somebody to get something so I could win. And so when that resonated with me, I was like, okay, that was like, all right, I feel really good about this. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, it's interesting you say that. So there's so many times in my career, same thing. I made that transition. And when you genuinely try to help people, I'll never forget here in Michigan, we launched, one of the retail deals that we have. I was in, I think it was like Ypsilanti or somewhere. And I was interacting with a customer, talked to her about her services. She had one of the cable providers. This is before we did wireless. And he was literally paying like $300 for like TV and internet. I'm like, man, are you serious? Like, I've like felt bad. And I'm like, I went through the deal and I said, hey, I'll get you a gift card or two. And then at the end of it, I looked over at her and she started tearing up. And I was like, is everything okay? She goes, I was praying this week that something good would happen so I could have some more money to take care of my kids. You're going to reduce my bill literally $150 a month. Yeah. Besides the gift cards, now I can get these school supplies for my kids. And she's like, can I hug you? And I was like, okay.
Let me check the handbook, make sure. Yes. Okay.
And you never know like what that means. And like, I know here in a day-to-day, and I'm sure you do this with the deals that you guys have, like there's significant significant change in economics when it comes to someone's service. Not only is the service better and other things, lots of benefits, but a lot of times that cost that they spend monthly, I mean, is legitimate changes. So that's awesome. Leadership. You've become, and by the way, do you mind me asking how old you are? I don't even know.
I am now 31, which feels really old, but it's not. But I'm like now the oldest person in my office. I'm like, oh my God, no, I've reached that.
You're even older than I am. I'm 27. So it's sorry to hear that. So I oftentimes people in leadership are learning a lot about themselves. What's a big leadership lesson that you had?
I kind of, and I like wrote down a quote because I'm a very well prepared person. So I wrote all this down, but I think there's a quote that really resonates with me in leadership is like, when the tide rises, all ships rise with it. And for me, I felt it's and also like a Spider-Man quote. Leadership to me, like I take leadership extremely seriously, maybe almost too seriously, but I feel like genuinely leadership to me is with great power comes great responsibility. And I genuinely feel responsible for other people. And I'll never forget my manager telling me, when you agree to interview or when you agree to train somebody, you're agreeing that you are responsible for their success and potentially the ripple effect of their generations moving forward. So like, are you willing to take that responsibility? And I remember like, hearing that and I was like, is it really that serious? And then when I started like genuinely noticing, I started promoting out deals and I genuinely sat there and I was like, oh my God, like, imagine if I didn't take this seriously, or imagine if I didn't wake up with the intent to try to inspire or the intent to try to train or develop other people. Like I have, feel like a surgeon. I'm like, I have people's lives in my hands, and I don't know if that's me just being over dramatic about it, but I think like, I genuinely think leadership is all about the ripple effect you have on other people. And so I live by the legacy that I can never ask someone to do something that I'm not willing to do. And it forces me to wake up every day and work on being the best version of me. Right. And I know that anytime my office is like feeling groggy, I'm like, all right, I need to go to the gym. I need to wake up. I need to start like, I started 75 hard and suddenly half my office goes to the gym now. And I'm like, so that's how it works, right? I go to the field, everyone starts closing. And it's not that it becomes a duty. I don't think it's like I wake up and I'm like, oh, here's this chore I have to do. It just starts, it always reminds you about the influence that you have when you choose a leadership position. And when you say I'm going to lead people, it genuinely means that I have to put not only my best interests, but everyone else, they come first. People over paper, in my sense, right? Like people matter more than anything. And so I think for me, if you want to head into leadership, or if leadership is something that's really important to you that you want to step into, you have to ask yourself, like, am I willing to take on the responsibility of what leadership is? And if the answer is yes, and you have that in the back of your head that sometimes people's success is determined based off the effort you put in, you kind of start to take your job in life a little bit more seriously. And so with that mentality, I think that changed a lot for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. The reason we pushed the call back this morning to 10:30 is 9:30 to 10:30. I got recruited to be on the board of directors of the best and brightest companies. I don't know if you've heard of that organization, but so we had a meeting this morning with all the literally vice presidents, CEOs of some of the biggest brands here in Detroit. And a lot of they were asking, and we were networking and supporting each other with that exact thing, like leadership, right? And the responsibility you have to, for employment, the responsibility you have for training and development and all these different areas. But it's not unique to our industry. I can just say that. It is unique to life if you want to lead. And to me, it's about family too, right? And family, I've had to step up in a lot of ways in the last 20 years that some I've wanted to and some I haven't, but hence is life as you get older. So very cool. So word that I, from your bio, you put your mom on payroll.
Yes.
You've done so well that you're. Can you tell us about that? Like, it sounds like it's an awesome accomplishment.
Like I said, I feel like I try things sound a lot more poetic than they are on paper, but it was, so my mom had owned restaurants and she does live in New Mexico, which if you've seen Breaking Bad, yes, that's exactly what it looks like. So she lives out in New Mexico. It's like, there's not a lot of job opportunities unless it's like the oil industry or education. So a lot of jobs are oil, gas, or a lot of them are the colleges that surround the area, the high schools and stuff like that. So my mom had like thought about opening a restaurant, but obviously, COVID had hit and she was like, she moved back out that way for family. Our family's from New Mexico. And so she moved back out that way and she really didn't know what she wanted to do. And I had already felt kind of, I think you really, once you start heading into your late 20s and early 30s, you start treating your parents like they're your children. And I was like very protective over like what she could and couldn't do. And I was like, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. And so she had like worked at a hospital and worked in nutrition. And then she was like, I don't really like, being around all these sick people. And then ironically, COVID hit and then, she didn't work. And once we stopped getting the government support after COVID, obviously people were cleared to go back to work. I was cleared. We were doing really well. Obviously after COVID, our sales went up 300%. My company had like quadrupled in size. I was doing really well. She called me and it was just a casual conversation. My mom and I talk every other day. Like we talk as often as possible. And so she called me and I'll never forget that she was like, so I have like a job interview and I think I'm going to try to take it. And I was like thinking like, oh, that's exciting. And she was at the time 59 and she was like, I think I'm going to like interview at like Taco Bell. And I don't know. No, there's nothing against Taco Bell. Not my favorite fast food, but I was like, there's something about her saying that I was just like absolutely devastated. I think it like brought me to tears that she was like, all right, this is what I'm going to have to do. This is my opportunity. And I was just like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so I was like, you know what, let me talk to Casey. And I don't even think I really like said anything. I was like, okay. Well, let me talk to my accountant and I like might have an idea. And so it did take a lot of convincing. My mom's a very, proud woman. And so she was like, no. And I was like, your break even's like 300. Like, you're really not, you're not breaking the bank here, Mom. Like, I think we're going to be all right. So it took some convincing, but like 3 months later, I was able to put her on payroll, and now she's been officially retired. So she will never have to work a day again. And she begs me to work, and I'm like, we're all set. Like, you're good. I don't need you to work. So yeah, she came up to visit and we celebrated her kind of retiring. And so I think now she's extremely thankful that I never gave up on myself in the business, and even more than before, because she's like always texting me about, do I get a Christmas bonus? And I'm like, you're lucky. Just remember that. Let's just stay positive.
You're like, no, don't make me fire you.
I'm like, try to cut you some leads in the area. If you want to start knocking, let me know.
That's funny. Yeah. So you should have her do your Christmas cards.
Something, man. I mean, she did come for Christmas. I brought her here for Christmas, and she like made Christmas cookies, and she was like, all right, okay, that was the year's work. And I was like, great job. It was
all in one job in the kitchen. I love it. So last but not least, I know it's coming up at 11 o'clock, and you gotta we have 30 minutes put aside. And again, thank you so much for joining us today. I love it. Looking back, 10 years ago, early 20s life, what would you tell your 22-year-old self if you were to kind of start over?
Yeah. It feels like forever ago, I think. But I think that I would tell myself that people's opinions of you aren't really going to matter. And I think it's almost a decade later. And I remember like really caring about what people thought. And that was like from my family, from my friends, from customers. Like, I don't know, like just I remember just thinking like everyone's opinion really mattered. And I remember kind of like changing myself or making a lot of decisions based off of how other people thought I should live my life, or how other people tried to advise me on what I should and should not do. And now heading into, since I just turned 31, I like now realize the most important opinion is mine. And if I can put my head on my pillow at night and know that I've given 100% at the end of the day, that's the only opinion that really matters. And then a lot of people's opinions start to like alter based off how you feel about yourself. And so the more confident and the more I was sure of myself, people were like, yeah, you seem like you know what you're talking about. So yeah, I agree with you. And it was less of me trying to search for answers in other people's opinions and giving them power over my life and my decisions. I now feel extremely confident that if I do the right things long enough, if I have the right intention, if I've got integrity, if I work hard and treat people well, I really just can't fail. And so when I put my head on my pillow at night every day, like that is my biggest fear in life, is to just say I could have done more. And so I think every night I'm like, okay, I kind of like put my head on my pillow and I assess like, what did you do well? What could you have done differently? And what are we going to do tomorrow? And then I think now that I live like that, the conversations in my head are a lot nicer. That person's a lot friendlier, they're a lot more supportive. And then because I treat myself like that, the people around me typically tend to be a lot more supportive of my decisions too. So not really worried about other people.
I love it. That little person in my head is called Kenny Baby.
I got to name mine. I got to think about it.
I'm like, Kenny Baby, fuck off. Get out of here.
I love that.
So, and another little fun things you've done really well. Top of the head, didn't prepare you for this, so it's got to be quick answers. All right. Biggest paycheck in the field. 1 week.
Biggest paycheck for me was like $17.50. And I signed up 7 people in a day in territory that I just worked 6 months prior. And I remember telling my manager, I can't work this T because I just worked it. And she's like, you're going to go work it now. And it was the best day I ever had. And that was like back in 2014. So it was like $17.50, but the best wire was this week's wire, which was $75,000 with a bonus. Today.
So it pays to grow in the business and to run markets then, huh? Is what you're trying to say?
Doesn't hurt.
Oh man. I love it. Well, hey, travel safe to Jacksonville. I'm looking forward to hanging out. Thank you so much for your time. If you're in a place to take your computers, phones, etc. off mute, mo money, mo problems is what I just heard. So happy Friday. Nichole, you rock. I love it. Thank you so much. We'll share all the audio and video with you later. But I hear some people clapping back there. But have an amazing day. We'll see you in Jackson.